Perfect. Thanks. Yeah. All right, here we go. It's March 11th. It's Tuesday. It's hopefully another 60-degree day. And here, I'll give you one little reminder for you. Two things. We're heading into the eye of the storm in terms of transactional volume. And yet, here are two good reminders for you in the market of the moment. Okay? One, when you're feeling the pressure of the eye of the storm, get outside, get some fresh air, and get some vitamin D. It's amazing what it can do for you. Two, get 10,000 steps a day. It will change your perspective on life. I'm just telling you, and it's much easier to do in March, April, and May than it is to do it in January, February. Okay? So it's funny how the sun comes back up at 6:30 a.m. You can start getting some fresh air, relieve the pressure that you feel in the market of the moment during tense negotiations with clients or co-brokes. Get outside. Okay? There you go. There's my lovely piece of advice for you this morning. So what are we going through today? Couple things. One, Lynn's has got some tech updates for you right away. Sheriff Reed's going to come on to help you understand and make sure that we're playing by the rules of our lovely MLS. Especially around single party and excluded listings. Want to make sure that we mitigate any risk you might have as it relates to single parties and excluded listings. Then I'm going to wrap it up. One, talking about the results and productivity of this group to help you understand how freaking good you are and what you do. Because sometimes you need a little wind in your sails, because here's the truth. I will finish with where is the market of the moment today. The market of the moment today isn't much different than what it was last year at this time. And a lot of people have been saying or feeling like, oh my gosh, it's been getting better or whatever. Truth is, it's not. Kind of we're in the same spot, yet prices are going up. So your average deal size continues to go up. So the challenge in it is, how do you find your units? Because when your average deal size goes up and you're making more money on a per transaction basis, you can get complacent as it relates to your activities and how you do your stuff in order to find more units. Make sense? So that's what we're going to go into today. With that, little change of pace today. Linz, you're up first. How do these guys need to know about enhancing their sites?
Okay. Good morning, everyone. All right, so I wanted to share some command updates specifically around agent sites. So it's been a little bit since I've kind of talked about any sort of updates to command, and so I'm excited to share just a couple of things that they've been working on in regards to the agent websites. So recently they added some different theme options. So previously you kind of just had one look, if you hadn't really customized your site kind of looked the same like everyone else's. Well, now they've added new functionality where you can go in and you can choose from either a classic or a modern theme. From there, you can also choose a different color scheme like you see on the screen. You can also choose from different fonts as well. So there's about 5 or 6 different fonts that you can choose from. You can also choose different button shapes. So you can get even more specific with customizing that. So it just gives your site a little bit more of an elevated feel, a look to it, and just personalize it even more. So highly recommend taking a look at that and changing that if you like some of those different options in there. So that's been added to the design studio and that is live right now. In addition, and this was added maybe a few months ago, but I wanted to share this as well. So on the homepage, previously, you could only add static images to scroll through on your homepage. You can now add video. So it's a really great opportunity to display drone videos, maybe that you've gotten for your listings, or maybe you've done drone videos of different neighborhoods that you specialize in. The other thing too is you can utilize tools like Canva or other online resources to download videos. If you stop into the offices and you see the TVs, those videos are from Canva. So those are free if you've got Canva Pro, I believe. So you can actually download those and you can upload those to your website, and that displays behind that search bar. So again, elevate your website, personalize it, and it really sets you apart with a really great online presence. So just a couple quick reminders, because I wanted to tie this into the conversations that have been had the previous couple of weeks and at family reunion. 73% of all searches start online or with an agent. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about your online presence, and your website is a part of that. So you want to remind yourself of, 43% of buyers are looking online at properties first. So the other thing too is, what are consumers looking for? Well, they're looking for detailed property information, property photos. They want to search for homes. And Keller Williams knows this, and that's how they built those agent sites, because the search is front and center on the homepage. And so your website is a full IDX search. So it's already built out and ready to go. So it's not just the Metro MLS, it's beyond. Consumers can go on your agent website. They can search for any home in the Metro MLS. They can search for any home in the state of Arizona, in Alaska, across the entire nation. So if you've got clients who are looking in different states, it's a great referral opportunity as well. And your site's also going to include all of the necessary information that consumers care about: detailed property information, property photos, neighborhood insights, and so much more. So if you're interested in learning more about that and customizing this site and building this out to fit your business, join Madeline and I on Thursday. We're going to be dedicating our tech and marketing training specifically to agent site customization, and how you can incorporate some of those new tools that they rolled out, changing up your theme, uploading video, changing out the site navigation, all of those different things. So we're going to be doing a deep dive into a lot of those ways that you can customize your site. So join us this Thursday on Zoom at 11. That's it. Thanks.
All right, I'm going to hammer something home for you real quick. One, the biggest buzzword in our industry that I think nobody really knows what it means or how they take full advantage of it is individual agent IDX. You have it and you have access to it and you don't pay much for it. Okay. Despite what happens within our MLS, I think that you sometimes take for granted the tools that are at your fingertips. Two, a lot of times, and I see this often, agents overthink how their online presence should be. Simplify it. People want information as it relates to accessing what is going on in the market and how do they search. The third thing I would tell you, and this is the secret sauce that many people overlook, the ability for your clients to search for homes, whether it's Naples, Florida, Scottsdale, Arizona, or Milwaukee, Wisconsin, all happens within this site. So don't overthink your websites. The beauty of it is KW's done all the research to help you understand how it is that you need to live online, implement it, and forget it. And you have all the tools and resources. IDX, IDX, IDX. I use that as a way to little Pavlov's reminder of triggering. So with that, I'm flipping it over to Sheriff Reed. Sheriff Reed, what do these guys need to be paying attention to as it relates to single parties versus excludeds?
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, this is a reminder, but we still get calls on it all the time. So that's why we want to bring it up. An excluded listing means that it is excluded from marketing out of MLS, which means it should be excluded from marketing in any other way as well. So a lot of times it's protecting the confidentiality of the seller, or to have some time to get things ready, but it's basically the seller wanting that confidentiality. You must still submit a copy of the listing contract within 48 hours as normal. And the only permissible intended purpose of the seller excluding the property is for their own privacy and provide additional confidentiality. So selling agents found abusing this and marketing it in any way could be assessed liquidated damages, and they're pretty steep. So make sure that if you want to see what the damages are, go to Section 7 of the rules in MLS. But basically, know what you're doing with excluded listings. It's basically for the seller's privacy. It's not for you stacking your listings.
Sheriff Reed, I'll save them time and money instead of having to go to section 7 of the rules. It's
Yeah.
$1,000 per day that you market an excluded listing per day. So really simply put, you send an email with a picture of a home that you forgot was in excluded for whatever reason, right? It happens. And you allow time to pass. Someone sends it to the MLS and says, where can't I find this information? The MLS says, oh, it's been 14 days. And they'll slap you with a $14,000 fine. It happens. Okay. So it's a good reminder as it relates to how we manage and utilize excludeds in the most appropriate manner for you guys to mitigate your risk. Cool? Yes.
It's a virtual
True.
website.
Virtual, I don't know. It's probably,
Is there a base? I mean, that's our term.
yes. Yes. You can't put it this way. If you have an excluded listing, don't put anything in writing. You can verbally talk about it and you can share it. I just wouldn't put yourself at risk, even if it's an internal virtual office website. You put yourself at risk sharing written information. Thank you.
Right.
I've never really thought about what a virtual office website might be, but now it's a new term.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, there are a lot of tattletalers out there. So if you do market it in some way, somebody will call MLS and say, I don't see this in MLS. Why is it in my Facebook? So,
Remember, I tell this to my 6-year-old all the time. Loose lips sink ships.
true.
No. Single
Okay.
parties, Sheriff.
Single party, that's the key word here is non-exclusive. You got to remember, if you get a single party listing from a seller, you may have a buyer or somebody you knows has a perfect buyer for this. You want to just ask the seller for a single party listing for this buyer. The key word is non-exclusive. The seller could still sell that property underneath you. Another agent from another firm could still sell this unit. They could get single parties as well. So make sure that you know that you have a lot of competition in a single party listing. So I advise you to cross that line out in the title of a listing contract where it says this is a exclusive right to sell. Cross that out because it isn't. Next.
You're not the only one on the dance floor. Just remember that.
So how do you draft it? That's what I'm talking about. Cross that out in the title of the listing contract. Add on the line 149 to 150, non-confidential information, or you could use additional provisions. This is a single party listing for a named prospect, and you put the name of the prospect. If additional names are brought to you or you find additional names of buyers that might be interested, you use an amendment to that listing contract to add each buyer's name. Remember, the intent of this is single party listing. It's not meant to stack up a bunch of buyers and see if you get lucky. So why do it? It should be used when a seller requests for good reason. It's the way to get the highest price. It's not the way to get the highest price for the seller on his property. Obviously, when the market works, the price is competitive and can go up. Good reasons for doing a single party listing. The property is not ready for marketing to the general public. One buyer has an interest in the property. They're a perfect match. Seller is not committed to moving and that's one reason, or is someone needing privacy. The best alternative, and this is what we're going to push today for a single party listing, is to list it and put it in excluded MLS status. You are more protected. You actually have a listing, but it is protecting the seller's identity or not ready at this point. So what ifs, avoid if possible using a single party listing to continue to gather more named prospects. This can get tenuous, and that word means liability, and can be regarded as as a pocket listing, excuse me, which is not allowed in the state of Wisconsin. Better get it listed, delayed, or excluded.
You have some risk exposure with single parties.
Right. And then we have an internal list of properties that Willis gathers every weekend. If you have an excluded listing, a single party listing, a coming soon listing, go to this place on the homepage of our agent hub and submit that address. That is tight within our company and is not considered marketing.
Yeah, one thing on the single party and excluded list. One, you get the email reminders Fridays and Mondays to submit your excludeds and single parties. It's our way of trying to leverage our economies of scale within our listing inventory to help you get you guys the access to information. Because as you'll see, when inventory is incredibly tight, the access to information is what will help you win deals. Two, the list is only as good as what you submit. So if you want to go excluded, or you want to go single party and you're trying to generate interest that can drive value up for your client, it would behoove you to submit it because it generates the most amount of interest in eyeballs in a way that isn't marketing. Lastly, I will share with you this. Before the list gets sent out to you on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, depending on when we can scrub it, we scrub the list every time before we send it to ensure that you are not releasing information that might get you in trouble as a way to make sure another level of risk mitigation. So for example, when you say excluded and you put, I don't know, 5124 Woodburn, and I say, well, you can't have Woodburn and you can't have 5124, we'll just say excluded, this is the bed bath count in Whitefish Bay. And you can reach out to Lauren Siegel if you have an interested party. So sometimes people may not know the rules to it. And so we always scrub the list and then make sure that you guys get an appropriate list going out to you. Make sense? And again,
Yeah.
the list is only as good as what you input. And the more you input into the list, the higher likelihood that you can drive more value for your clients if you're using single parties or excludeds as a marketing tool. Cool? All right. Love it. Sheriff Reed, appreciate your help. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Lore, I'm going to go into lore, training and education. I'm going to finish on what's going on in the market at the moment. Because I wanted to ground the group in a few things that I've kind of mentioned quickly in passing, but I wanted to help you understand more in full. And there's some really incredible things that this group is doing. And I don't think at times that you always appreciate who you're doing it with. First of all, this is 2024 data, January 1 through 12/31. This was last year. Okay. As a collective group, we finished in the top market share position in 2024, but yet that's not the most important thing or the thing that I want to highlight. The group alone is the most productive group in the state of Wisconsin. And what do I mean by that? The average KW associate last year closed 12.6 units per agent that averaged 5.1 million in closed dollar volume productivity. That is 112% higher than the average in southeastern, than the average agent did in southeastern Wisconsin, and 80% more units than the average agent did in southeastern Wisconsin. I remind you of that to say that you aren't in this business to be average. You're in this business to build a freaking big business. And our job is to help you get there and to help you understand the productivity, the activities, and the obstacles we need to remove in order for you to be excellent at what you do. The byproduct of excellence are results like this. The second piece of it, and I get asked for this often, especially as those that are looked to elevating their price points, is when you break down the luxury market. And what's interesting is last year in the general, what I call total population, Gen Pop market, we were 14% total market share. In the luxury space, we had 19.8% market share, and we sold 78% more luxury than the number 2 brand. And we sold them 37% faster, working in an average price point that was 10% higher. It's an incredibly productive group. And sometimes it's taking stock in where you are and where you're going and who you're doing it with in order to help you get to where you want to go. Now, here's the next thing that I would share with you. And this is incredibly interesting because this will lead into why training and education is important and why you continually have to sharpen your iron. Get a load of this. And I didn't do it as fancy as the other graphs, but this is January 1 through yesterday, March 10th, market share productivity by brokerage in southeastern Wisconsin. Now, mind you, the market is essentially flat. The market is essentially flat through yesterday. So I want to share with you something. Okay, these are 2025 results by brand. Berkshire is down 6, Homestead's down 3, EXP is down 42, Compass is up 10, Realty Execs is down 15, First Weber is down 12, Remax is down 7, CB is up 15, Shore West is down 10, and collectively this group is up 25% through the first effectively 2 months of the year. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because of the intentionality and purpose of this group. And if you think about what it is that we just came out of in the fourth quarter, and for many of you who've been around for a while, we've talked about the energy dial. And the reason why we lean so heavily into training and education into fourth quarter is because we know we have to help you hit your first quarter goals. Because if you miss your first quarter, you can't make it up in the fourth quarter in order for you to hit your annual goals. We lean into the training and education in the fourth quarter in order to propel you in the first quarter. I would say in the first quarter so far, the results speak for themselves. Up 25% is pretty freaking incredible. Many of you are feeling the impact to that, right? And so I use this as a reminder to say, iron sharpens iron. You have so much to learn and so much to give. And the way you do that in terms of increasing your level of productivity of you and your peers is through training and education. Last little nugget, because I think this is incredibly interesting. KW Associates as a group have sold 33% more dollar volume than the number 2 brand in southeastern Wisconsin so far. That's about 100 million more than number 2.
Say that again, please.
33% more volume has sold through this group than the number 2 brand. My point being is, in a market that's effectively flat and operating at similar levels that we saw in 08, 9, and 10, the group is working with jet fuel, and you are seeing the results. So I share this with you as a reminder sometimes because I know that I get eye rolls and, oh, training and education, this, that, and the other. No, this is the byproduct of what it is that you guys do, right? So let's talk about the education events that are forthcoming, shall we? In the month of March, here's your month. Everything's intention and purpose. All right, March training calendar. We have an incredible group and accelerator this morning. We have about 25 people. I will be there on Wednesday morning to pour into that group. We have a handful of things coming up too. I want to point out next week, Jay will be teaching his price to sell. Yes, we will have it recorded. Yes, it will be available on the YouTube channel. Cool. Couple other things to point out. On Thursday, the 13th, Stephanie and Scott will be leading their budget mastermind, 1 p.m. for beginners, 2 p.m. for advanced. Here's what's really interesting about this. This is very telling to me. A lot of you say you want to pay more attention to your finances, and yet so few of you show up when it's time to actually do the work. And then, right, a few reminders from the vision speech. Gary talked about how acquiring assets pays off long-term. You never regret acquiring assets. The challenge in acquiring assets, it's delayed gratification. Guess what? You can't acquire assets if you don't have capital, and you don't have capital unless you know how to budget appropriately. So, want to learn how to budget appropriately in order to acquire capital and then put the capital to use to acquire assets? You should jump on the budget mastermind with Scott and Smins on Thursday the 13th, 1 or 2 p.m. Cool? All right. Buy dirt, lunch and learn on the 18th at 10:30. A lot of you have clients who have dirt and you don't know what to do with 100 acres in Mosinee. These guys can help you. I talked about earlier, Jay will be teaching his incredibly popular CMA class on the 19th. I would also point out expired listings, which we'll talk about here in a second, are up substantially. The reason I believe they're up substantially is 1, listing agents aren't communicating properly, and 2, they are misappropriating pricing recommendations on the front side, so they get canceled on the back side. Learn how to do it appropriately on the 19th with Jay. And then learn how to grow your farm on Thursday the 20th from 11 to 12. You want to manufacture listings through leveraging and helping people access their equity. Peter will be teaching you a tool that he leverages through Focus Title all around how he identifies ways to help people unlock their equity through tools that Focus Title has available to them. And then lastly, I mentioned this, our compliance broker in the Southwest, who's been with us for a long time, unfortunately has been battling ALS. We've done a lot to support her, and there's another fundraiser coming up on April 19th for those that might be interested, or if it's just simply you want to make a simple donation, we would appreciate the help. Cindy Coos has been with us almost since we launched the New Berlin office, and we're looking forward to continuing to support her and her family as they battle this disease. All right. So we talked about the productivity that you guys delivered in 2024 and how you accelerated into 2025. Those results don't happen by accident, right? And iron sharpens iron. Now I'm going to help you understand what's going on in the market of the moment locally in southeastern Wisconsin, okay? Couple things that I want to remind the group to as it relates to the vision speech over the last couple of weeks. One, when you look at it, sides per agents are down substantially. Historical average is 9.5 deals per unit. In our market center, or our collective group in Milwaukee, we're at 12.6, and yet the industry average last year was 5.4. 5.4. It's hard to make a living if you're only doing 5 deals a year. Okay. Volume per agent, though, and this is where I was challenging you as it relates to your mindset and complacency, because volume per agent is up so substantially because of the appreciation gains we've seen the last 4 years. There is sometimes where agents are resting on their laurels because their income hasn't been hit despite the fact that their units have gone backwards. So what effectively has happened is they've lost market share in this, yet they haven't felt the impact to it in their incomes because prices have continued to appreciate. So the income they've made per deal has gone up, which is why we haven't seen the attrition many of us were expecting through this last wave. And last week I shared with you 171 million leads were sold to agents last year, and yet there were only 4.1 million homes sold. 171 million leads and 4.1 million homes sold. It means every home was sold 43 times over. And when you consider that the 76% of the U.S. population over the 18 was sold as a lead in 24, and when only 2% of the population transacted real estate. Point being is we are in a game of communication. And I shared with you 78% of the time buyers found their agent through referral, previously utilized, or they found them online. 78% of the time. And unless you are number one, you are irrelevant. Because 75% of the time last year, buyers only interviewed one agent. 91% of the time, buyers interviewed 2 agents. People don't have the time to interview. They don't. And so it's a game of communication. And when you look at the satisfaction of your professional services within our industry, people tell you they value your services and they're willing to pay you for it. The question is how do you articulate your knowledge and be the economist of choice in your local market, which I will challenge you with right now is ever more important. Why? Because if you just go on Twitter or X or CNN or Fox News or whatever you listen to is in your RAS, what are you hearing right now as it relates to real estate? The market's down, prices are depreciating, days on market are going up. And yet, you know what the challenge is? That isn't the truth in southeastern Wisconsin. You have to be the voice of reason for your clients. When it relates to sellers, 70% of it's a communication game. Sellers found their listing agent via repeat, referral, or they were contacted by an agent. 70% of the time it was repeat, referral, or they were contacted by an agent. Remember, people will pay for convenience. Simply reaching out, contacted by an agent was the top 3 ways sellers found their agent. Okay? And I'm doing this all to set the stage for you to help you understand what's going on in the market. 81% of the time, sellers only interviewed 1 agent. 94% of the time, they interviewed 2 people. If you don't leave the listing appointment with the contract signed, you might as well start taking stock in what it is that you didn't do in order to get the listing contract signed. Use it as a feedback loop. Okay? So I will remind you, these were my outlooks that I gave you at the beginning of the year. 1, macro trends, we're starting to see stabilized mortgage rates. 2, strong GDP and household growth will create long-term housing demand. 3, demand will continue to be strong and in our favor because our region is growing. Sales and inventory opportunities will emerge with inventory levels thawing. We have not seen that yet, but migration patterns are in our favor. Price trends, steady appreciation, and So what was my prediction? And then we'll give you what's going on in the market. Okay. I said the market will be up mid-single digits. We have some work to do in order to get there. Market will be up 7% or more on closed dollar volume. That's happening, and I'll share it with you because you'll see the appreciation gains. Rates, expected downshift, haven't quite seen that yet, but I would expect to see maybe something mid-year. Housing will continue to be an asset, and regional population will continue to thrive because I've been on this big kick and theme as we've talked about insurance costs going up across the country and playing an impact as it relates to affordability. The low incidence of natural disaster and the high availability of fresh water will continue to be good for our assets. So what's going on in our market? This is new inventory units in southeastern Wisconsin, okay? The 5-county metro area through the first 2 months of the year. Now I'm going to remind you how I look at this data. I look at it twofold. What happened in the current month? How does it compare to the prior 30 days? And how does it compare to the prior year, same month? So when you look at February of 2025, there were 1,693 new listings that came to the market in the month of February. My question to you is, how many of those did you take? There was 1,693. There's more than enough, despite what's going on in these trends, for you to hit what it is that you want to do. January, this is what's interesting to me. New inventory was down versus January of this year. Now, if you look back here, what always happens is January is the floor and then everything rises. It's a little concerning to me that February was off where we were in January. Now, 1 month is an anomaly, 2 months is a trend, something I'll be paying attention to as it relates to new inventory units, but I don't like that we went backwards from January to February. And we went slightly backwards from this February versus last year, February. So it's an interesting start to the year from an inventory perspective because despite the fact that it's gone backwards, closed units are still up 1%. Okay. What does that tell you? Hint, hint about demand. Demand is still strong. Total inventory units, there were 4,949 units that were for sale in the month of February. It was back slightly by -3% versus January. Again, if you look back over the historical, and the reason why I give you these bar graphs over a 2-year period is you can see January typically is the floor. So the fact that we retreated a little bit has everything to do with the new inventory that came to the market, and yet we were even to total inventory last year. Expired units, I mentioned this earlier as a little bit of a hint. Expired units were up 11% versus February of last year. Okay? 2 lessons in this. 1, once you get the listing, make sure you're appropriately communicating with your sellers, appropriately pricing it with your sellers, and you're level setting expectations with your sellers, or you will be canceled. How do I know this? Expired listings have continued to go up and up and up, and they were up 11% versus last year. The second lesson in it, for those of you who have never paid attention to it, and yet listings are hard to come by right now, you have an opportunity to be the number 2 listing agent in the marketplace because sellers are pulling the ripcord on the listing agent faster than they ever have before. So there is a way to diversify your listing inventory as it relates to how you lead generate because expireds are becoming more prevalent. Okay? Sales absorption is the percentage of inventory that goes under contract in a given month. In the month of February, we were at 27%. It was up 7% versus January of this year and down 7% versus February of last year. Net, it's seasonal demand. It's starting to build. I would be concerned if inventory was starting to fall January, February as it was, and yet we saw sales absorption rates increase. It meant demand is still picking up. And as long as the demand is there, we'll figure out the inventory piece to it. Okay. Average days on market in the month of February was 43 days. It was 7% faster than it was in January, or 3 days shorter. And we are on par with where we were last year in February. Okay. The market from a velocity or rate of sale perspective is operating as to what we're used to. Units under contract, there were 1,335 units that went under contract in the month of February. It was up 4%, despite the fact that inventory went backwards versus January. There was 4% more units that went under contract in February, despite inventory going backwards versus January. Okay, again, demand. You'll see this show up in pricing. Now, also, when you look at it, the reason why we saw a slight decline versus February of last year is 100% correlative to new inventory slow. Okay, And so closed units are flat because new inventory, and this is just coming back to you, new inventory was off by 100 units versus last year. Had we had more inventory, the demand is basically telling us we would have sold more homes. Okay. Impact on pricing, and I think this is incredibly interesting. When you look at the average is up 12% versus last year, and the median's up 15% versus last year. And when you look at price per square foot, it's up 15% versus last year. So a few key reminders for you, and then I'll give you my grocery store market of the moment script. One, all of this then has an impact as it relates to what's going on from a year-to-date perspective. Closed units are essentially flat. Sales volume's up 13%. This is all Metro MLS data, by the way, through February. So what's happening is appreciation has upticked again. We saw some slowing in Q3 and Q4 of last year. I think now that we have some certainty as it relates to what's going on from the political environment, you're now starting to see some of the appreciation gains come back and the demand remaining healthy. Okay. Now, I've gotten asked for this a lot. What's winning? This is the data as it relates to all of the accepted offers that we have been able to review in the month of January and February. And I give you what won in April and May of last year and July of last year for perspective. Okay. Because April and May were the heat of the spring market. June was an odd month and July was the peak of last year's market. So I give it to you versus the peak of last year to help you understand what's winning. Now, as I was looking at this data, I was actually expecting some different trends than what showed up. Okay. In January, we had 272 accepted offers that we reviewed with an average price point of 371. The list price to sales to accepted offer ratio was 98.9%. So it was slightly below list price. Earnest money average was 1.6, which is basically on trend with where it has been. Inspection contingencies were still at 58% had inspection contingencies, 42% did not. Okay. Basically 70-30 finance versus cash, average down payment 17%. Appraisal gap is only at 8%. So it's not being utilized as much as people might think. February. Now you're starting to see 101% of the accepted offers on 171 deals that we reviewed in February went above list price. You're starting to see the impact of the competitive market. Earnest money was at 1.8. We saw basically it's still 60-40. 60% of deals still have an inspection, 40% do not. Still basically effectively a 70-30 split as it relates to finance versus cash. Average down payment still 19%. And the appraisal gap still only 9% of the deals we reviewed in February had an appraisal gap, yet the average gap offered was 17,000. So it jumped. Those that are using it as a gap are using it as a way to cover it. So, two things for you, and then I'll finish with the grocery store script. One, listing agents, you want to think about how do I manufacture my listings? What do I mean by that? How do you go find inventory? I think it's going to be a game of education. Giving people perspective and helping them understand your expertise. 74% of mortgages have rates 5% or less. 38% of homes are mortgage free, and 76% of homes have more than 50% equity. We exist to bring perspective in order to help them understand. We exist to bring perspective in order to help them understand. So if you want to manufacture inventory and you want to go find inventory, be the market level expert as it relates to helping people understand. The reason I know this is important is yesterday I met with my financial planner, tax planner, this team of people, and I was in a conference room in downtown Milwaukee. And the head of the group who I was meeting with said, "Hey, there's an agent in your office who every month sends me what's going on in my neighborhood and gives me a general rule of thumb about where the value of my home is. And it's the email that I look at the most often. And I just wanted you to know that this agent is doing a great job for you." And I was like, "Oh, that's incredible." And he goes, "You know what I love about it? They're educating me on something that is very important to me, my home." You have an opportunity to educate, provide perspective, and help them understand. And if you do that well and you do it effectively with intensity and frequency, you will manufacture your inventory and then you control your destiny. Because when you are the listing agent, you control the destiny to your income. Now, Here's what's going on in the market of the moment script. So when you go to Quick Trip, Pick and Save, or Sendix, and you have to go and get a gallon of milk or a carton of eggs, and someone says, Brew, what is going on in the market of the moment? How do I affectionately say, with all this data, and again, I give you the data because I don't expect you to memorize it. It's so that you know I'm not blowing hot air, right? Here's what's going on. Demand of the market has remained consistently strong. It has really come back post-election because we have certainty within the market. Something to pay attention to, and I didn't add this in the notes. If you paid any attention to the stock market in the last 2 to 3 days, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster. Okay. All of this pontificating about a lot of things that's going on isn't helping capital markets because capital markets like certainty. Something to pay attention to as we head into the future and how it impacts our industry. But when I'm getting a gallon of milk and someone says, what's going on? I'm like, look, demand is strong. Don't listen to what's going on in Phoenix and Florida and Texas because they are telling a story very loud that it's not healthy. That's not the case with where we are. 2, inventory coming to the market is on pace with what we've seen in the last few years. What does that mean? It's still relatively tight with lots of competition. So don't expect an influx of inventory it's going to create a competitive market. Be ready. Okay. Rate of sale and velocity. Homes are moving at similar rates as they were in 22 and 23. Expireds are increasing pace. Sellers are impatient. We have to make sure that we're setting expectations, communicating, and pricing appropriately. Pricing and appreciation. So inventory has remained suppressed. Okay. Demand has gone up and remained healthy. What happens? Appreciation gains have picked up steam again. Effectively, you just say they're up 10+% so far in 2025. You don't need to know the exact number. You don't need to bear arm with average versus median. Just know that they're up over 10% in 2025 in southeastern Wisconsin. Because I'll tell you, every media outlet is talking about how prices are going backwards. Okay, you have to be the economist of choice within your local markets. What to expect? Another competitive spring market. There's going to be healthy demand, slowed inventory coming to the market will continue to drive appreciation of residential real estate in southeastern Wisconsin. Okay, and I say that to you as a reminder that what you do, you are the best at what you do. Take stock in who you're doing it with. Lean on your peers when you're having trouble. When you're feeling the eye of the storm, get outside, get some steps, get some fresh air, get some vitamin D, and lean on those that when you have a tough listing or a tough client, lean on your peers because you have the best peers in the industry. And I know it because the results speak for themselves. Cool. Linz will have this up on the Agent Hub on our KW Realty MKE website for you so you can pull down these slides when you'd like. And guys, it's a beautiful day in Milwaukee. Thanks for showing up. Have a great day, guys.